Emily was closing her late shift at a small neighborhood market point. Her feet were killing her. Even the soft sneakers she wore every day couldn't save her from the exhaustion. She just wanted to get home, make herself a strong cup of lemon tea the way her mom used to, and sit in silence for at least 5 minutes. But customers kept coming, even this late. Emily scanned groceries on autopilot: bread, milk, sugar, the usual things locals bought every evening. She forced a polite smile for everyone, though worry twisted inside her. Tomorrow was rent day, and she barely scraped together enough to cover it. After the divorce, she was raising her college-age daughter alone, cutting expenses everywhere, taking every extra shift she could. A cashier's salary wasn't enough, but there weren't many job options nearby. The line finally thinned out when he walked in, a tall man in a dark, expensive coat, moving fast, almost too fast. His deep brown eyes were restless, like he was searching for a solution to a problem he didn't have time to explain. He dropped a random chocolate bar on the counter without even looking. Emily scanned it and read him the price. He handed over his card, tapping his fingers anxiously on the counter while the payment processed. Then, out of nowhere, he blurted, "I need a wife, just for an hour. Please." Emily froze. She thought she misheard him. The man glanced around nervously, making sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. He smelled like expensive cologne and pure panic. "Please, I have a very important meeting in 30 minutes. Extremely important." He paused, avoiding her eyes. "And I told him I'm married, which I'm not." Emily still didn't understand what any of this had to do with her. But the stranger pulled out his wallet, took out several large bills, and pressed them into her hand. "I'm begging you. I need you to come with me and pretend to be my wife. 1 hour. That's it. I'll pay you well." Emily looked down at the money, 2 months of her salary, lying in her palm. Her hand began to shake. She looked from the bills to the stranger, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. He wasn't joking. He was too serious, too desperate, and the cash was very real. "So, you're asking me to just go with you and pretend to be your wife?" she whispered, glancing around. He nodded quickly, trying to meet her eyes with something like reassurance. "I know it sounds crazy, but I'm not a creep. I promise. My name's Daniel." His voice trembled slightly. He was nervous, too. Emily didn't know what to say. She couldn't wrap her head around it. Why would a wealthy, well-dressed businessman need this kind of favor? But then she looked at the money in her hand again. Rent due tomorrow, overdue bills, her daughter's textbooks. A sudden stroke of luck. A crazy one, but luck all the same. Could she really afford to walk away? Emily quickly folded the bills and slipped them into the small pocket of her uniform. Her decision wasn't easy, but something in her gut whispered, "Take the chance." "All right, I'll try to help you," she said quietly, "but I'm not sure I can act well enough." Daniel let out a breath of relief, a long, shaky breath. "That's perfect. Thank you. Really. Don't worry, it'll be fine. I'll guide you through everything. We just need to hurry." He checked his watch, then asked, "You're heading home after your shift? Do you have time to change into something else?" Emily flushed. "I have a couple of nice outfits, but they're all the way across town. We won't make it." Daniel thought for a second, then nodded decisively. "It's okay. We'll figure something out on the way." Daniel, a foreign investor, had flown in, a very traditional, very family-focused man. Daniel needed this deal. Desperately. He'd made one small mistake, trying to impress him. He said he was married. The investor loved that, asked to meet the wife, insisted, and with the contract worth a fortune, Daniel panicked, saw no way out, and ended up standing in a grocery store begging a stranger to help him. Daniel, clutch, Emily. What am I doing? Daniel. Well, he said softly, you look perfect. You're helping me more than you know. From now on, your name is Grace Hamilton. You don't work. You're focused on charity projects. You don't need to talk much. Just smile and stay calm. I'll handle everything. Emily, Grace Hamilton, charity work. If there was ever a moment to hold herself together, it was now. At the restaurant entrance, a waiter pulled open the heavy wooden door. Inside, at a large round table, people were already waiting. Daniel took Emily Grace gently by the arm. A sudden wave of old, long-forgotten feelings washed over her. Back in college, she once attended academic conferences where she learned how to speak with dignity, even if her knees shook. She never thought those skills would matter again. They reached the table. Sorry we're late, Daniel said confidently, and I'm honored to introduce you to my wife, Grace Hamilton. Everyone at the table rose politely as Emily and Daniel approached. The first to extend his hand was the investor himself, a short, slightly heavy-set man in his early 60s, with a neat silver beard and sharp, intelligent eyes. Next to him sat a blonde woman in a tailored suit, clearly his wife. Such a pleasure to meet you, the investor said in accented English. I'm Peter Holm, and this is my wife, Elizabeth. Emily, Grace Hamilton, shook his hand with a calm, polite smile, though her heart was still beating too fast. Outwardly, she looked composed. Inside, chaos. Daniel pulled out her chair, and she sat, folded her hands on her lap the way she'd seen elegant women do. We've already ordered, Elizabeth said warmly. I hope you don't mind. The kitchen here is wonderful. Of course, Daniel replied confidently. We trust your taste. Waiters glided around the table, filling wine glasses without a sound. Peter Holm launched into conversation, asking Daniel about his company, plans, projections. Emily stayed quiet, exactly as Daniel had told her. But from the outside, they truly looked like a married couple among other successful, polished people. No one that would have guessed that an hour earlier she'd been scanning groceries in a corner convenience store. We're looking to expand into a new logistics branch, Daniel explained, answering Peter's questions with practiced ease. Emily felt herself slowly relaxing. The worst fear had passed, for now, but then the conversation shifted. Money, projections, numbers, and suddenly the investor frowned. Daniel, he said slowly, my only concern is profitability. You're promising a 20% return by the end of the year, but I haven't seen any calculations that justify that growth. He then laid out several rough numbers, figures he apparently expected to sound convincing. Emily's brows gently furrowed. Something wasn't right. The math didn't add up. She checked it in her head automatically, like checking a customer's receipt. And before she could stop herself, she spoke. I'm sorry, she said quietly, surprising even herself. But with those inputs, a 20% return isn't mathematically possible. Every head at the table snapped toward her. Daniel blinked, clearly not expecting her to step in. Peter Holmes' eyebrows shot up. And you are quite correct, Mrs. Hamilton. The actual profit would be around $1 million. Emily continued softly but clearly, meeting his eyes directly. A thick silence fell over the table. Peter stared at her for a moment, stunned, and then suddenly burst into a warm laugh. "Ah, that's what you meant. My apologies. That was a clumsy phrasing on my part." He chuckled, waving his hands. "I was referring to a $6 million return after expenses. I simply misspoke." He turned to Daniel. "Your wife is remarkably attentive to detail. I'm impressed." Daniel reacted instantly. "She's exceptional," he said with a gentle, proud smile. "Grace used to work as an accountant. She has an incredible instinct for numbers." Emily lowered her eyes shyly, but something inside her straightened. Confidence, a forgotten part of her. She was good at numbers. She wasn't just some cashier trying to survive another rent cycle. And for a moment, just a moment, she felt like she truly belonged there. The tension at the table dissolved as quickly as it appeared. That evening, as the dinner went on, something unexpected happened. Emily stopped feeling like an outsider. The warm candlelight, the easy conversation, the surprisingly delicious food, it all softened the edges of her fear. Even Elizabeth, noticing Emily's shy attempt to discuss charity work, smiled and gently supported the topic. Emily continued the story Daniel invented, how she supposedly helped coordinate donation drives and charity events. But then she realized much of what she said wasn't a lie. Years ago, before the divorce, she had organized school concerts, collected clothes for children's homes, helped seniors through community programs. Pieces of her old life, the capable, confident version of herself, suddenly resurfaced. Peter Holm noticed too. He softened, nodding approvingly. "You know," he said to Daniel with a wink, "you have a wonderful wife, smart and modest. I enjoy doing business with men who have women like her by their side." Daniel thanked him politely, but Emily felt her chest warm with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. She had actually helped. Her comment earlier about profitability had mattered. As the evening drew to a close, Peter pulled a folder from his briefcase. "This is the preliminary agreement. Review it with your legal team, and if everything looks good, we'll sign tomorrow. I'm pleased with our meeting." He shook Daniel's hand, then, unexpectedly, Emily's. "A pleasure meeting you, Grace. I hope we see each other again." Elizabeth nodded approvingly. "You made a lovely impression." "Thank you," Emily whispered, her cheeks burning. When the couple finally left the restaurant, Daniel exhaled sharply and broke into a wide smile. "You were incredible," he said, keeping his voice low. "I had no idea tonight would go this well." Emily felt her knees go weak with happiness. She hadn't expected any of this from herself either. "I was afraid I'd ruin everything," she admitted. "Not even close," Daniel said gently. "You saved me. Honestly, without you, I'd be finished." The way he looked at her now, with warmth, gratitude, and something else, made her chest tighten. They walked out of the restaurant side by side. The cool night air wrapped around them, calm and clean. Daniel offered her a ride home. Emily accepted. In the quiet car, she finally allowed herself to breathe. "This was insane, right?" she said with a small, disbelieving laugh. Daniel chuckled. "Honestly, I still can't believe I walked into a grocery store looking for a wife for an hour. But maybe I was meant to." Emily turned her head, caught off guard by his tone. "Meant to," she echoed. He glanced at her, then at the road again. "Yes, you're not just a cashier. You're educated, sharp, brave. I wish I had met you sooner." His voice carried genuine regret and something like admiration. Emily lowered her gaze. She had never complained about her life. She just worked, survived, did what she had to do. But now hearing this, hearing someone acknowledge her worth, her heart filled with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," she whispered. The car slowed to a stop in front of her building. Emily suddenly felt self-conscious. Her entire world looked so small compared to his. But Daniel turned to her, eyes serious. "I actually have a real offer for you," he said. "A real offer?" she repeated, her fingers still on the door handle. He unbuckled his seatbelt. "Yes, you're trained as an accountant, right? I need a skilled financial consultant in my company. Someone who understands numbers like you do. Would you consider it?" Emily's breath caught. A job in her field. In a real company. Something she had stopped even dreaming about. I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Just say yes," Daniel said softly. "Everything else we'll discuss. Officially, properly. But after tonight, I know you're exactly who I need." Tears filled her eyes, bright, sudden tears of joy. This morning she felt like a nobody. A tired cashier with overdue bills. Now she was standing on the edge of a future she thought she'd never have. Yes," she breathed. "I'd love to." Daniel smiled, relieved, sincere, almost proud. "Perfect. I'll call you tomorrow. Thank you again for everything." He handed her his business card. Emily nodded, wiping a tear with the back of her hand. She stepped out of the car, waved, and watched his taillights fade into the night. Then she stood for a long moment under the dim street lamp, clutching the card to her chest as if it were a key to a new world. Later that night, Emily sat at her kitchen table with a cup of lemon tea. Her hand still trembled as she read and reread the phone number, the company name, the possibilities. Her heart felt light, calm. Everything had happened so unexpectedly, and yet so right. As she thought of Daniel's warm, sincere smile, she felt something else too. Not just hope for a new career, but the gentle, cautious beginning of something that felt like happiness. Maybe this really was fate.